Hey guys, Eric from Stochastic. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to get started real quick here today. We've got a lot to cover. We have a wonderful topic, and I want to talk to you a little bit about long-term customer value. When do I get money from my customer? What does it look like over time? And I want to compare that to the story of Hugh Glass. And Hugh Glass is a fantastically interesting American, and these stories have an interesting tie together that you'll kind of see as we get to the end here. So let's get started. The first question, of course, is who in the world is Hugh Glass? And Hugh Glass is a really, like I said, an interesting American tale. And our story is going to pick up in St. Louis, which ironically is the home of stochastic marketing. That's where our story is going to pick up, the part of the story we're really going to talk about. But before that happens, Hugh Glass is already a wildly interesting individual. He's already run away from an apprenticeship, gotten in trouble for stealing and murdering. He gets kidnapped by pirates and forced to become a pirate, escapes those pirates only to be captured by the Indians, befriends the Indians after his capture, lives with them for a number of years, then escapes them and heads to St. Louis, where he uses all of his earnings, all the things he has, spending all of his money in brothels and at bars. And as he runs out of money, Hugh Glass needs a new job. What is he going to do in this bustling city? And at this time, St. Louis is the fur trade capital of the world. More fur goes in and out of here than will anywhere else in the world at any time. Is traveling through St. Louis at this point. And this is 1822, so this is the height of the fur movement. And there's an article in the paper, an ad in the paper, I should say, that William H. Ashley has put in there looking for basically anybody he can find. Up to this point, the Indians had been doing most of the trapping for the fur traders, and it was some really determined men who decided that if we went out and trapped in bulk, if we took a group of trappers out and trapped in bulk, we could do a lot more damage. So they're about to head out into Indian country, and William H. Ashley is taking his new company, the Rocky Mountain Fur Company, which will become wildly successful, but not on this trip, out into the woods for the second time. The first trip was a disaster. Everything fell apart. This trip won't go much better. And so they head out, and almost immediately, disaster strikes. The party runs into a band of Indians. The Indians attack. The fur traders were not expecting the attack. They thought they were friendly. And they end up in a standoff where they're being picked off slowly, one by one. And after 24, 48-hour standoff, it varies based on the story, they're finally able to escape, but way down in numbers, and without their supplies, without a lot of their horses. And they travel a little further up the road, put some distance between themselves and the Indians, and they need to eat. So this is where Hugh Glass's story starts to get interesting. William Ashley asks Hugh Glass and some others to go out hunting. In one story, in some versions, they say he was told not to go hunting. That doesn't matter here. He goes out hunting to try to find some food for the group. And unfortunately, instead of finding food, he finds a bear. And unexpectedly so. And anytime you walk up on a 12-foot, 400-pound grizzly bear, things aren't going to go well. So Hugh walks up on this bear, which is now angry, and there's no way for him to get away. So he does the best he can, and he unloads his gun into the bear, which does little but make it mad. He attempts to defend himself with a knife, which the bear easily knocks away. And then the bear kind of has his way with Hugh Glass. He slashes him open with one hand, knocks him to the ground with the other, grabs him with his jaws, shaking him like a baby, and just for good measure rips out his trachea and bites his head, cracking his skull. Luckily, the gunshot brought the rest of the hunters running. They heard the commotion. They were able to come up and kill the bear and keep it from killing Hugh. He's in a bad way, though. Lacerated kidney, broken bones, broken ribs, slashed trachea, cracked skull, broken arm, broken leg. Everyone knows Hugh is going to die very quickly. 24, 48 hours, he should be dead. So they strap him to a gurney and begin to drag him behind, but Hugh refuses to die. A couple days go by, and it's really slowing down the progress to keep dragging him. But it's still very clear he's not really healing. He's barely conscious most of the time. So William Ashley asked two of the trappers to stay behind, John Fitzgerald and Jim Berger, to stay with Hugh Glass and just be with him until he dies, bury him, and then catch up with the rest of the fur trading company. And they're going to receive extra pay for doing this, so they both sign up to do it. Unfortunately, 2 days later, Hugh still isn't dead. He's still just clinging to life. He refuses to let go. And so John Fitzgerald, feeling a little heat beneath his feet because the Indians are still in pursuit of them. He can hear them. They're starting to see signs of them in the woods. He wants to get out of there, and he convinces Jim Berger, who is a rather young man in this story, although old in the picture you see on the screen there. He kind of buffaloes him into this idea. And on top of it, as John can clearly tell that Hugh's about to die, he takes Hugh's prized rifle. And the rifle really is going to set the course of the rest of this story, because that rifle was very important to Hugh, as it would have been to any mountain man, any trapper. This was their means of survival. And Hugh's rifle was a really nice one. He had put a lot of time and effort into saving up to buy it, and he had taken very good care of this gun. It was his pride and joy, which is kind of the reason why John Fitzgerald wanted to take it. But John Fitzgerald, Jim Berger leave. They take Hugh's rifle. And the crazy thing happens that Hugh doesn't die. He wakes up and goes in and out of consciousness for the next few days, realizing soon that he's all alone. And so he drags himself out of his bed and then begins what will be a 200-mile journey on his hands and knees, slowly recovering, resting near streams, hiding under rocks, kind of staying out of the way of everybody, and being eaten to death by bugs, slowly recovering over the next few months as he drags himself 200 miles in pursuit of John Fitzgerald and his rifle. And when he finally arrives where the fur trading party is, he confronts Jim Berger, who is there, and Berger says John Fitzgerald has already left with part of the company. They've headed back south. And so Hugh and John Berger have a conversation. He expresses to Berger that leaving him alone in the wild was the wrong thing to do, and if he ever sees him again, he'll shoot him dead on sight. And he lets him go. That's the end of the conversation, and he continues on another 250 miles south this time in pursuit of John Fitzgerald. And it takes him another month or so to finish that trek, heading all the way back down, basically to where he started, where he confronts Jim Berger. Now, a lot of books and movies have been written about this story, everything from the Song of Hugh Glass to the book The Reverend, and they almost all end the same way, which is the big Western finish. The big Western finish being the confrontation between Hugh Glass and John Fitzgerald. Hugh Glass comes storming into the base in one story. In another, they confront each other and pull knives. But in all those cases, it's a knife fight, a gun fight, a fist fight, whatever fight to the death. Hugh Glass kills John Fitzgerald for leaving him to die, takes back his rifle, and goes on with his life. That's the big Western finish, and it's a fantastic ending to the story. It aligns a lot with the story we see with lifetime customer value, and you'll see how in just a second. As a contractor, we look at lifetime customer value very simply. We do a great job for a customer, they're going to love us, and they're going to keep calling us back time and time again. We get to keep being their service provider until we get to do an install. Then we get to be their maintenance provider until it needs some repairs. Then we do those repairs, and then when it's finally time, we're going to do the next replacement. Kind of like you see on the screen here. A bunch of maintenance, repair, and service work, an install, then a whole lot more of maintenance and repair work until we install the next system. And we'll keep doing that forever. Over time, the value of those customers, our big Western finish, will go up. We're going to see a little bit of money up front. We're going to do a great job, instill ourselves in the mind of this customer, and in the end, we're going to make a ton of cash from these guys because we did such a great job. They're going to appreciate it. We're their person. We're their guy, their company, their contractor. When something goes wrong, we're the ones they're going to call. Unfortunately for the story of both the contractor and Hugh Glass, the big Western finish in both cases is a lie. Hugh Glass finished his 450-mile trek confronting Jim Berger without a knife fight or a gun fight or a fist fight, simply with a conversation, a handshake, an exchange of $300 and his rifle. That's right, he traveled 450 miles, runs into John Fitzgerald, and the conversation, as is recorded, was simply, never do that to anyone again. You owe me for my life and give me back my rifle. To which John Fitzgerald would give him back his rifle and $300 cash. And that's it. Why do we have these other big Western finish endings? Well, actually because nobody bothered to check. Like I said, there have been a bunch of books written about Hugh Glass and his adventures, and nobody actually ever went to look. I mean, who would walk 450 miles, dragging themselves 200 of it near dead, only to have a confrontation at the end in a handshake and an exchange of goods? Well, nobody, of course. The Western ends in the gunfight, the shootout at the OK Corral. That's the way all these stories end. And it wasn't until the 1970s that somebody went and bothered to check the Army records, because Fitzgerald is at an Army base, to see that John Fitzgerald joined the Army and then retired from the Army and died in his bed some 25, 30 years later. There was no confrontation. There was no shootout. The big Western ending didn't happen. And the same is true for our customers. We all talk about that long-term value, building the value for the customer, getting in the house and getting something done today, doing a great job and building that value so that over time, that customer will keep coming back to us. Well, on your screen is what it actually looks like. These are individualized household transactions for companies over 14 years, highlighting when those transactions happen. And we're looking at $1.6 billion. That's 591,000 households that we're looking at here. And notice when all of the transactions take place. It's the first year, 64%. 64% of all the revenue that ever comes in from these customers happens in the first year. Most of it on day zero. That's the first day you do an invoice. When we look at years 2 and 3 on blue here, or in blue here on the screen, that's just 15% of your revenue. But if you take those and add them together, we're now at 80%. 80% of all of our revenue happens with customers in the first 3 years. That means there's only 20% to chase after in year 4 beyond. So there's not a lot of money in the long-term customers. All the money's up front. And so you have to kind of tailor-make your business to look at it that way. So why does this look so different than the way we look at it in the industry, than the aforementioned big Western ending? Well, the reason's simple. This kind of defies human logic. If I do a good job, I expect that people will continue to hire me, bring me back, continue to use my services. The reality of the situation is much different. The reality is you have to do a good job right now because this might be your only chance. So when we measure this, it turns out the average number of times you'll be in a house is between 1.2 and 1.4 times. What does that mean? That means you got one shot with most people. That means every third customer you might get a second shot with. But the majority of people whose homes you visit, you have one chance to make an impression, to find the opportunity, and to sell them. So the question is how does your business look? How does your business look? Maybe you have a lot of club agreements. Well, the numbers look the same for club agreements too. Here on your screen are the club agreements broken out the same way. So agreement customers, club members, whatever you call them, we're looking again here at a whole lot of money, $500 million worth of club transactions taken out of the same data we just looked at. And notice 52% of the sales still happen in the first year. 52% year 1, day 0, still by far where the majority of the money changes hands. Why is that? Well, mainly because new customers are where all your revenue are. We talk about it. You only get one shot in most of those houses. So how does this look for you? Well, if you want to know, there's a real easy way to find out, and that is send me your data. I will run this report for your business. If you think that my numbers are wrong, if you think your business really thrives on long-term customer relations, send me over your data. I would love to see numbers that prove my theory wrong. I've got about $9 billion worth of data that says this is consistent across every contractor I've looked at. I'm looking for the first one who can prove me wrong. If you don't know when you do business with your customers, let's find out together. Let's find out so you can be able to do a few things when you go into the home. One is so you understand the pace at which you need to get the revenue out of the customer, and it's quickly. So understand you've got one shot. So you can understand that you've got to do your best work today, not because you're building for sales tomorrow, but because if you do your best work today, you can close today. And let's not forget those long-term customers. Let's take a look at how well you're doing with them. Are you doing 30% of your sales with those long-term customers, or just 10, 15, 20? Or are you doing 40%? We can work on the problems and find solutions to get you in line with what you should be doing, because you should be doing 20, 30% of your revenue with those long-term customers. But if it's more than that, you've got a different problem, which is a lack of new customers. Building your business on long-term customer relationships is hard. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of going to houses and not getting much revenue and really trying to force your way forward. Building your business on acquiring new customers and doing the best job you can when you're in the home every time makes life a lot easier. So let's take a look at where you're at. And the easiest way to do that, well, folks, there are two good ways to do that. You can email me your information, or you can send me a text message or give me a call. The numbers are on the screen here. Reach out to me. We'll be happy to run this report for you, and we'll get this taken care of for you in about a week. So in less than a week's time, you can have an answer to one of the most important questions in HVAC marketing. When do my customers do business with me? What is the long-term life of that customer look like? So give me a call, shoot me a text message, or fire me an email. I'm Eric Weitrell with Stochastic Marketing. Thank you so much for joining me today. We'll talk to you soon.